up, everyone? I'm the Kaiji no Kami here at Megalon. Well,
Wow.
remember to click like, subscribe, the bell notification, and whatever else YouTube has you clicking on to support us. What's up, everyone? Kaiji no Kami here from the Toku and Animation News Network, and I thought I would just share to you my final thoughts on MegaCon Orlando. I have to say, I went in expecting, well, my expectations were really low given how poorly run Fan Expo Denver is. We usually only went because it was a local con and we got to go to cover it. So I kind of expected more of the same from MegaCon, and surprisingly it was nowhere near as bad. There was still some disorganization, but it was just little things here or there. They didn't change the rules every day like Fan Expo Denver typically seems to do. The downside of the convention, I'd say, is that there weren't really a lot of authors and indie artists. A lot of the comic book artists that were there were ones who have done stuff for Marvel and DC, and they're all like, yeah, I've got it made. I work for Marvel or DC, compared to a lot of the indie studios. Like, there were some. We did pick up a couple books from some indie studios here. Well, these were novels, I should say, not comics. Creepshow is a comic. Zombies of Mass Destruction, which is done by the guy who created Underworld. And then this thing called The Exorcism at 1600 Pen. So we did pick up a few indie stuff. One of the books was probably more than we should have, but we wanted to support indie creators. I also did get to meet Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda, what is her name now? Connor? And I got him to, well, he drew for me a picture in my Jonah Hex omnibus, which is damn awesome. I mean, it was really cool. Palmiotti, we've met him before and he was great. Amanda was great. And then I had them sign my Gargoyles book here because I got this on the Kickstarter. And then it was funny because they're looking through and they're like, oh, well, we didn't get any copies of this. And then they started to realize there were a couple of errors in the credits. That was kind of funny. And then I got Greg Weisman to autograph it. Like, even though it came with printed pages that were just put in there, Greg Weisman, I had him autograph this book and volume 2. So now I have regular autograph for a pre-printed page and an actual autograph up here. I would have done volume 3, but I forgot to bring it. So it is what it is. I also got to meet Timothy Zahn, who was awesome to talk about his Star Wars novels. And Tim Jacobus was cool again. We picked up a few movies. I got specifically the recent movie adaptation of Kikaider. So for those of you, I already opened it, so I'm not doing an unboxing video, but I figure here I will show you what it looks like. Spine again, backside, and then the single disc since it's just a movie. So now I have all of the Kikaider releases from Discotek. It was nice to see the only physical media seller there for Blu-rays was a shop that is typically at all the conventions we go to in Colorado. So Colorado Anime Fest and DK when we used to go, and now it was nice to see him there. Unfortunately, he couldn't do Anime Fest since it was the same weekend as MegaCon. Now, surprisingly, there were a lot of video game shops at MegaCon, and I mean a lot. Some were a bit pricey, like There was one store that wanted $200 for Silent Hill 4 The Room, and another that wanted $180 for it. And that was like the lowest price I saw. The Silent Hill games were insane in what they wanted. Somebody had Persona 1 for the PS1 for $1,000. But I went on a quest because, well, I have Twisted Metal 2 that was my dad's original copy. And I went on a quest, well, if they're going to have games, let's see if I can get the rest of the PS1 Twisted Metal games. And happy to report, they did. Oops. Technically, it should be like this. It was pretty cool because I first found Twisted Metal 3. It was originally unopened, but the case was all broken up, and the guy gave us a discount for it because originally it was supposed to be $80. Sold it to us for $50 because the case was broken. And then so I opened it up and swapped out the cases to have a non-broken case. Twisted Metal 4 was pretty much perfectly fine. Didn't need to swap anything out on here. And then Twisted Metal 1 was a generic case. It had the black insert, so I just swapped that out for a normal case. So now I have all of Twisted Metal on the PS1 again. The only Twisted Metal game I'm missing is Head On, which I'm going to hunt down the PS2 version. Yeah, I did see a seller at MegaCon have it, but by the time I saw it, I was kind of out of money. And I actually found this, well, this was $60, and then, funny enough, this was like the hardest one to find. I could find these others, even 2 was everywhere, but this one I only saw at one shop for $60, grabbed it immediately, and then the next day on Sunday, I saw a shop have it for $40. I was like, oh! But still, I now have all the Twisted Metal on PS1 again. So now I wouldn't feel so bad buying it digitally. We also got to meet some really, really cool people. It was expensive, well, one of them specifically, but we got to meet, John Carpenter, who was amazing. John Carpenter was so awesome. And yeah, he was great to meet. He's at that stage where he just says what he feels, and he was pretty cool for it. It was a fun time meeting him. I got my They Live and Halloween poster signed by him. We also got a photo taken with him later for the con's professional photos, since they weren't doing photos with his autograph, which I think kind of sucked, but it is what it is. And then we also got to meet Tommy Lee Wallace, who also directed Halloween 3. We got to meet Dean Cundy, Nick Castle, and PJ Souls. All of them were super nice and fun and engaging. I actually got into a discussion with Dean Cundy and Tommy Lee Wallace about film noir, and Tommy Lee Wallace told me that they were originally trying to get Fred McMurray to play Cochran in Halloween 3, but he wasn't available. But O'Hara Lee did such an amazing job. They were like, oh, well, it sucks for McMurray. We've got someone that's just as good, if not better. And so I thought that was pretty cool to learn. I don't remember hearing that in any of the bonus features. It is possible it was stated, but it was pretty cool to learn. I mean, Tommy Lee Wallace was super cool. He's like a person I could get into discussion about all types of films for hours on end. If it wasn't for the fact that you're not allowed to at a convention, like just chit chat with the actors if you're not buying something, I would have just totally stayed there and chatted with them. Again, Dean Cundy was great. PJ Souls was hilarious. Nick Castle was fun. They did a panel the Sunday night, so they did this Halloween panel, and I have to say there were positives and negatives to it. It was fun and frustrating at the same time. It was fun because it was great to see all the Halloween people that were there interacting with each other on stage, talking to each other, bouncing memories back and forth. And that was really cool to see, because usually in the bonus features on the documentaries, you just see them individually, you don't see them all together. At the same time, though, I will say that this was probably my least favorite panel host I have ever seen. The guy spent half the panel just how to put it nicely, fan wanking John Carpenter the entire time he's on stage talking to him. And it felt like a disservice to everyone, not John Carpenter, because there were times John Carpenter would try to redirect to get him to talk to the others, like Halloween 3 for Tommy Lee Wallace. And then the dude was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, give it a hands off. Okay, John, it's like, dude, come on, talk about Halloween 3. Let's do that. It doesn't have to be all about the first Halloween. That was kind of a bit of a bummer. And, well, let's see. But then he was doing this or that game, and John Carpenter was getting so annoyed because he didn't even understand what the guy was trying to talk about with this or that. He was like, okay, Jason or Leatherface. And I did find it funny when Nick Castle would give the answer from the previous question for the current question. But nobody was into this or that, and the guy just kept it going, which was very annoying. And it wasn't, I mean, I'm sitting there like, oh my God, how much longer is this going to go? And then John Carpenter's like, can we move on to something else? Not as nicely as that. But, so it was cool to see this panel at the same time, kind of a bummer since the panel was kind of a waste. He didn't ask any new questions about their time on Halloween. Practically everything they talked about had been talked about in interviews. He didn't ask anything brand new at all. I found that to be quite a letdown. Like, even... I mean, you know, I interview people. Speaking of interviewing people, we interviewed a couple from some groups from this. There was a horror film festival. We interviewed the people in charge of that. Everything is up now. We got to sit in on a panel because we sat in on a horror film called The Pitchfork Retreat. We were hoping to interview the directors of that film, but sadly, they weren't there on Sunday when we had come to interview them. And then we interviewed an indie manga artist named Poseidon Magna, who's also trying to do a video game. Well, he has like these Sentai like designs at his table that he's thinking of doing for some sort of video game, which they looked really cool. And we met some other people who weren't exactly great to meet, which was kind of disappointing, I will say. We met two Power Rangers actors, and yeah, was not a fan. I met Allison Court, was not a fan. So not everything was positive, but we did have a good time. I was surprised at how far apart, how much walking space there was between booths. Usually at convention, there's like maybe 5-6 feet at the ones in Denver. Maybe 8, but this was like 12, 15 feet apart between booths, which that was surprising for a convention of this caliber. And, another thing I was disappointed in was the panel selection. The panel selection was not the greatest. I don't even know, like half the panels was like, meh, meh, meh. Oh, we also met, for X-Men. We interviewed him last year at Fan Expo Denver. Houston. Shoot. His name's, well, yeah. It was cool to talk to him. I got to meet David Silverman from The Simpsons. He was fun to talk to. I was actually telling him that I'm currently rewatching The Simpsons from the beginning and am nearly done with season 6 and how season 6 is my favorite. Overall, the convention had some positives, had some negatives. I actually didn't hate it though, and I'm looking forward to attending again next year. I am trying to decide though how I want to approach conventions going forward. I just don't think doing press is really worth it anymore for the return on investment, because a lot of people just weren't interested in doing interviews this weekend, or were just too busy to do interviews. And that's becoming a common thing at all conventions, that people just don't want to be interviewed. There was an agent for one convention that said, well, why would my client want to spend 10-15 minutes doing an interview when that's 10 to 15 minutes of sales lost at their table. I get you're trying to make money, but come on. So, yeah. Nevertheless, we did enjoy ourselves. There were some frustrations, but it was a lot better organized than Fan Expo Denver, which was nice to see. Have you ever been to MegaCon Orlando? If so, what did you think of it? What are your thoughts? What's your favorite convention? As always, click like, subscribe, the bell notification, whatever else YouTube is clicking on to support me. You can support me on Patreon, on Bluesky, at tokuaannetwork, Facebook, Instagram, Discord, at Kaiji no Kami. My website is creativitybydesignllc.com, and there's a link in the description below for health purposes. And until next time, bye.